It's a hot, dry day. The sun beats down on Tenochtitlan, Mexico. Around the edge of the city, the birds are silent, and the gentle sounds of Lake Texcoco echo against the shores. To some, it may be a scene of peace, but to one man, it conjured the image of riches, fame, and power. That man was Hernando Cortés, and in the year of 1519, he was welcomed into Tenochtitlan by Emperor Moctezuma II. However, this initial peace was not to last, and what would occur next would change the shape of the world forever. This is the story of how the Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire gave way to the production of tequila. More on that soon. Stay with us. To properly start our story, we need to go back to 200 AD in Central America. A society with many gods, each associated with different aspects of nature, human activities, and the cosmos. Each plays significant roles in the narrative of the Aztec culture. One of these gods is Mayahul, a female deity associated with fertility and nourishment, depicted with her 400 breasts that she uses to feed her 400 sons. Mayahul is also associated with agave, a plant native to modern-day Mexico. Agave was utilized in various ways in the Aztec culture, with the thorns used in ritual bloodletting ceremonies, and the fibers extracted for use as ropes, netting, bags, or even cloth. However, the most celebrated product attributed to agave was the alcoholic beverage known as pulque. Produced from the fermented sap of the agave plant, it was primarily used in public ceremonies and ritual occasions. Going forward to 1503, society has developed, and a new man has just taken the seat of the throne. A military lord, as well as a priest. Emperor Moctezuma II is as good as a leader as you can get. However, despite his qualifications, he did not have an easy reign. Just 2 years into his newfound career, he watched as the land slowly dried up, and the crops withered away, resulting in a widespread famine, leaving a large population of his people hungry and beginning to starve. This famine lasted 3 years, with noblemen even selling off their children as slaves in the exchange for food. In 1510, as Emperor Moctezuma looked beyond the valley that surrounded Tenochtitlan to the regions of dense tropical rainforests and jungles that encompass the mountains, he noticed a nobleman traversing the Chinampas. These were the famous floating gardens that allowed the Aztecs to grow crops on Lake Texcoco. Separated by canals, they provided the lake-bound city a steady flow of food. He recognized this nobleman as Nezhualpilli, king of the state of Texcoco. He knew that Nezhualpilli was renowned as a great seer, an oracle that could see into the future, and he anticipated that it was not going to be with good news. Nezhualpilli warned Moctezuma that he must be on his guard, for in a few years Aztec cities would be destroyed. Before he left, he promised that there would be omens for Moctezuma to see, so that he knew that what he said that day was going to come true. A lot of modern-day scholars debate on whether such omens actually occurred, or whether they were retrospective creations to help the Mexica explain their defeat. With the Spanish accounts, they incorporated omens to emphasize their success, and in order for them to deem it as Spanish destiny. During his conquest, Cortés and his soldiers did not appreciate the fermented agave drinks that the Aztecs drank. Pulque is an off-white drink, slightly viscous, which gave a slimy sensation when you drank it, that some might compare to the sensation of eating an oyster. It had a sour, almost chalky flavour, with the fermented flavour similar to that of kombucha. and when Cortez and his men ran out of their supply of brandy, they used their knowledge of distillation in hopes of making the pulque more palatable. And they found that the fermented agave could be distilled to produce what was called vino de mezcal, literally meaning mezcal wine. The actual production of mezcal wine was documented from the start of 1608, however. The production of mezcal wine was actually documented to start from 1608, with at the beginning of the 17th century, agave wines produced in and around the town of Tequila started to get notoriety for their quality, attributed to the dormant volcano that shadows the town. In fact, in Nahuatl language, the word tequila means volcanic rock, or the rock that cuts. And by the beginning of the 1900s, tequila had its official definition, which was given a distinct definition different from the other agave-based spirits, which continued to be referred to as mezcal. More on this after the break. Do you enjoy listening to this podcast, but wish you could see it in a shorter format? Well, on my Instagram, @thecocktailpodcast, I teach people about alcohol, do product reviews, and other fun challenges that my followers ask me to do. If you're enjoying this podcast and want to support me in making more content like this one, head over there and give me a follow. It really helps me out. That's @thecocktailpodcast. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Before the break, we spoke about how tequila and mezcal have different definitions. Essentially, all tequila is mezcal, but not all mezcal is tequila. Now, to go a little bit more in detail, mezcal is any alcohol that's made from any kind of agave plant, whereas tequila can only be made using blue Weber agave. This often leads to tequila having more of a standardized flavor profile, whereas mezcal can have a wide variety of flavors depending on the batch, style of production, and the species of agave used. Now, if you have not seen an agave plant before, get out your phone and look it up. I'll wait. It's kind of like this big succulent looking thing, which is often confused with a cactus, which it is not. These agave plants have big leaves that extend from like a central core. Now it is the role of Mexican jimadores, the men who harvest agave, to shave off the leaves in order to uncover the core. Now the core is more better known as a piña. These piñas are then cooked to convert their natural starches and carbohydrates into simple sugars that can be fermented before distillation takes place. How the piñas get cooked depends on the alcohol being produced. On one hand, blue Weber piñas that are used for tequila are baked in large ovens, whereas any piñas that get used for mezcal tend to be roasted in underground pit ovens. These ovens are often lined with lava rocks, wood, and charcoal, and this is what adds the characteristic smoky flavour to mezcal. Once the piñas have been cooked through their respective measures, they get crushed in order to extract the agave juice, which is then transferred to tanks. Some distilleries still use the traditional method in order to crush the agave hearts, which is by having a horse pull a stone wheel along in circles while jimadores move all the broken down agave. Once this liquid has been fermented, it is then distilled. Usually twice, something that depends on the brand or the type of alcohol, and essentially the more you distill it, the more pure it becomes. However, there is a law of diminishing returns with the number of times you distill something. A quote that reflects this is from Enrique Colsa, the head distiller for Don Julio. He says that if they can't do it in two, they don't know what they're doing. When distillation is finished, the resulting liquid is called blanco for unaged tequila. For unaged mezcal, it's called joven. Then both spirits have reposado and añejo versions, in which they are aged in oak barrels for a minimum of at least 2 or 12 months respectively. One thing I wanted to cover: there is a myth regarding tequila and worms. Only certain mezcals, usually from the state of Oaxaca, are ever sold with worms. They're usually added as a marketing gimmick, the The same goes with scorpions as well. So, for you to know if you find either in a bottle of tequila or a mezcal, it's most likely a low quality product. Now, put all that information behind you. Imagine you are on a night out, either in a bar or a dingy nightclub. Your friend shouts your name as you turn across and see them standing at the bar. A gold shot glass in hand with a thin wedge of lime placed on top. You grab the salt, give it a lick before downing your shot and sucking on your lime. Why is this tradition associated with tequila? You wonder as the gross fumes of the spirit wash down your throat. Well, let me tell you. Back when tequila was first being produced as a distilled product, it was very strong, both in flavour and in alcohol content. It was a literal firewater. So in order for them to make it a little bit more palatable, they had to use salt in order to hide some of the more standoffish flavours, and the acid from the lime to get rid of any bitterness. The tradition has occurred to hide the flavour of bad quality tequila that is usually served in nightclubs and lower end bars, even though the quality of tequila has significantly improved. One of the brands that you usually find behind most bars is in fact the oldest tequila distiller in all of Mexico. The year is 1742 and a new drink is taking the world by storm. The spirit mezcal is becoming more popular than the native pulque. And two owners of a popular tavern called La Choria registered to produce mezcal wine on site, thinking they should benefit from the increase of demand. They end up selling around 20,000 litres to Guadalajara. This started the mezcal trade, whetted their appetite. From that moment in time, their plans were set in motion to establish the brand that many have come to know as Jose Cuervo. The man behind the brand was Señor Don Jose Antonio de Cuervo, who sadly passed away in 1764. However, his legacy continued, and in 1795 the Cuervo family, who had been producing tequila for more than several decades, was given their first license by the King of Spain to produce official tequila. Nowadays, Jose Cuervo owns about 30% of the tequila market. It's one of the biggest players out there. And as of 2012, they sold 3.5 million cases of their tequila in the US alone. So, you're asking me, how do you know when you go out how you can get a good quality bottle of tequila? The main thing that you'll want to focus on is having 100% agave. That is the rule, essentially. If it doesn't say 100% agave in it, it's filled with additives, it's filled with stuff that's going to make your hangover worse. So, any bottle of tequila, anytime, always 100% agave. Now, should you go for Blanco, Reposado, Añejo, Extra Añejo, Cristalano? Cristalano is essentially just Añejo, but made to look like it's a Blanco tequila. That really depends on your budget, and essentially, Blanco tequila can be drinking neat just as Añejo tequila can be drank neat. But essentially, the more aging notes you get on it, the longer it's been aged for, the more complex notes you're going to get on it. Blanco tequila, you'll tend to get a lot more grassiness, a lot more black pepper, a lot more eucalyptus flavours, and more aged, you'll start to get more sweeter notes on there. When I say sweet, it does not mean the tequila is going to be sweet. Just slightly more caramel, a little bit more vanilla notes that will come through from the oak aging. So, even if you don't feel like going out and drinking tequila neat, because I know some of you have got horrendous of ideas of what tequila does to you, after spending multiple nightclubs, going out, drinking pints and pints all evening, or glasses and glasses of wine, then going to a nightclub, having shots of tequila, throwing up, and the tequila is the first thing you taste, that is not a fault of the tequila. I mean, it might be, but just because you have it at the end of the night in a nightclub does not mean the spirit itself is gross. If you start drinking tequila as your first drink of the night, it's going to be much more enjoyable than it is going to be out of a plastic shot glass in a nightclub or a bar at 2 to 3 a.m. when it's lukewarm. So if you have preconceptions about it, put those away, go get yourself a decent bottle of tequila. You can even go and drink tequila cocktails. Margaritas, Palomas, Tommy's Margarita. I think, there's a Rosita I saw the other day, which is a tequila Negroni with dry and sweet vermouth. There's loads of really, really cool cocktails you can do with tequila. There's a ranch water as well. Never tried that one. So if you're getting into it, don't want to buy a bottle, go to a bar, go to a place, a decent cocktail bar that'll have decent tequila, speak to the guys there, because it's a really great spirit. It's actually the first spirit I started drinking once I got out drinking pints and spiced rum and cokes. Now don't get me wrong, I still drink spiced rum and cokes and still drink beers, but it was the first thing that opened my eyes to the world of alcohol, just because tequila is such an interesting spirit. You end up getting differences as well between Alto's tequila and normal tequila, highlands and lowlands. If you guys want me to go into that, let me know. Come over to my Instagram, comment on my post, send me a message, and I'll do a part 2 on tequila, looking at different types of brands and quality and what you should go for if you do want to buy a bottle of tequila, as well as the difference between highlands and lowlands. So that was the episode on how tequila got started, how the Aztecs and the Spanish influenced the creation of tequila. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.